Hello everyone, welcome to this first JavaScript tutorial. In this one, I'll be teaching you how to shuffle the values inside of an array. Let's begin. Okay, so let's take a look at our first example. We're starting off with an array with 6 cities. Then we're gonna have two console.logs, one up here, and then another one down here. The only reason why I'm putting this here is that later in the terminal, you're gonna see up here on top, where you're gonna see the cities like they are up here, and then the cities when they're shuffled, just so you can see a comparison and you can see that it actually works. Then we're gonna have a for, which is gonna repeat itself 100 times. You can change this if you want to. I just put 100 because it's not too high, it's not too low, it's enough for it to shuffle correctly, so I've just put 100. Next, I've put this variable inside of a comment, just because you don't need to you don't need to establish this variable. You can if you want to, but so I just put it as a comment for you to decide whether you want to do that or not. But I'm not going to use it, so I'll just leave it at that. Next, we're going to have a variable called city1 that we will have over here, which will generate a random number from 1 to 6, and then the same thing for city number 2. Okay, so up to here, everything is I think is pretty understandable and pretty easy. This part is where the more difficult part gets in. So to make things simpler, we're just gonna give city 1 the value of 2 and city 2 the value of 5. So having this in mind, let's take a look at the first line. So box is gonna be equal to city 2. To understand this, I've put here a little example. When you have a variable and you want to give that variable the value of a certain array, you say the variable that you want it to be assigned to, you say the array that you want the value to get out, and you say the number of the value that you want it for the variable to keep and for the array to remove. You can do the same thing, but instead of saying 2 or another number, you can say the value of another variable. So for example, instead of saying 2, I can generate a random number, which I have up in array in city 2. I've generated a random number, which in this case is number 5. So right now, box is equal to number 5. If we go here, number 5 would be Washington. Washington right now is inside of another variable called box. And because Washington is inside of this other variable, which is box, the spot number 5, which was where Washington was, is empty because he is in another variable. So let's take a look at line number 2 so we can see what happens. So now the value that we had in city number 2 will take the value that we have in city number 1. City number 1, let me remind you that it's number 2. So we're talking about London. So now London will be transferred to the place where Washington was. So what we're doing is that we're taking we took away Washington, we put it in another variable, and then we took London and put it in the in Washington's place. Because if you wanted to do this in real life, like if you had a line and you wanted to change where the two objects were, what you would have to do is take London with one hand and then take Washington with the other hand and switch them around. But we cannot do this in code, so we have to make another variable, which we're not going to use for anything else. We're only going to be using it to put the value of, in this case, Washington. And then we put London in Washington's place, and then in line number 3, which we have over here, says basically that city 1, which is this space that right now is empty, is equal to box. What is box? Washington. And if we actually go to the terminal, you can see here Berlin, Dublin, London, Madrid, Rome, and Washington, like we had up top, and then we have Washington, Berlin, London, Madrid, Dublin, and Rome. Okay, so this is the last example I'm going to show you. This is the shortest example. And as you can see, it's one line. This one line can shuffle any array. So before I explain how this works, these numbers that we have over here, I just put a bunch of random numbers. It will shuffle these numbers. You can use this if you only want to shuffle them, but if you actually want to change the value of the actual array, you will have to make your array in a different line. You'll have to create your array over here, put the values, and then change this for the array. Because if you're gonna change, if you're gonna be playing around with the value of these, but if you're only gonna be shuffling them, this will do. So basically, here we have it's not an array exactly. It's not inside of an array, so you don't have to write array. So we have our values here. Then there's a command in JavaScript which is called sort, which it's normally used to sort things. So you can use sort to sort the numbers that you want from 1 to 10 or from 10 to 1, or you can sort them in whichever way you want. But you can also use sort to start inside of a function, and inside of the function make sort the values randomly. So instead of sorting them, you're just making them randomizing them. So this is, in a nutshell, what we're talking about here. It's just a piece of code that is normally used to sort things, but instead of sorting them, because it's doing it randomly, it's just placing the numbers randomly, you're actually randomizing them. And actually, if we go here to the console, you will see it's shuffled. And if we go again, and if we were to hit run again, it will shuffle them like we saw in the previous example. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I hope it was a valuable lesson, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.